Yaurana tatou. Alors, je suis francophone, mais je vais faire une présentation en anglais parce que le sujet de mon étude est en anglais. This presentation explores Craig Santos Perez's praise song for Oceania. Perez is a Chamorro poet and scholar from Guam, an unincorporated territory of the United States of America in Micronesia. With the help of Hawaiian filmmaker Justin Kaolona Chong, Perez embraces today's new technologies to invent a new literary genre, the video echo poem, through which he tackles one of today's most pressing issues, planetary change. This presentation argues that Perez's work navigates decolonial ecology in order to deconstruct the epistemic and political boundaries put in place by the global north and to construct instead an eco-theological and responsible relation to the planet. Referring to the works of scholars in post-colonial, decolonial, and environmental humanities, this presentation offers a structural close reading of the video eco poem's 3 movements. In the first movement, I'll explore the boundaries between those who may and those who may not be held historically responsible for planetary change. In the second movement, I'll argue that Perez reaches beyond those boundaries to present an alternative eco-theology based on Oceanian and Christian spirituality. In the third movement, I present Perez's proposal to erase planetary boundaries so that we may all implement our responsibilities, in Donna Haraway's words, towards the ocean. Before starting this close reading, I'd like to specify that the whole poem addresses the ocean as you, which postulates that the ocean is a living entity with their own agency. This challenges the prevailing epistemological environmentalist boundaries according to which only humans have agency over non-humans. One last caveat, if you'll allow me. For technical reasons, I did not incorporate the motions and soundtracks of the video in this presentation. I do apologize for that. The song's first movement celebrates the ocean's resilience to harmful human impacts through a long anaphora on the word praise. This movement raises the question of the historical responsibility for climate change and species extinction. First, Perez pins down those who claim dominion over you, pointing at Western conquerors and colonizers who impose their political boundaries onto the ocean. This comes with a matte shot, a filming technique that superimposes 2 shots into a single print. We have here an aerial view of waves and a close-up on a huge moored US Navy warship. This visual technique showcases the US naval forces overlapping the ocean. It's a reminder that the US sea power is ubiquitous in Oceania. It should be noted that militarism is the most activity on the planet, and that the Pentagon is exempted from international carbon emission legislation. The matte shot continues with 18th century maps of the Pacific as charted by James Cook. Here again, the European maps overlap the ocean. This reminds us that longitudes and latitudes are a concept which was finalized in the 18th century around Meridian Zero in Greenwich, England, the birthplace of Anglophone imperialism. To this day, Greenwich Mean Time draws a cognitive map which serves to situate all humanity in time zones and space zones. It's an instance of Anglophone epistemic imperialism, a form of the Anglocene. Perez, therefore, challenges the word Anthropocene. Anthropocene is the word that is commonly used to refer to our present-day era, where human activities have been dramatically modifying the planet's biosphere. Like many countries at the recent COP27, Perez separates the global north and the global south because the current planetary change was originally caused not by all mankind as implied by the word Anthropocene, but by the capitalist global north. Roughly speaking, 20% of the world's population have been responsible for 80% of planetary change since 1850. We may therefore presume that the author targets the Capitalocene more than the Anthropocene. But he may actually target the Plantationocene, because the next lines, those who scar your middle passages, refer to the triangular slave trade that was plied across the Atlantic Ocean for 2.5 centuries. The poem, therefore, reaches beyond Oceania to embrace all the areas that have been subjected to global north's racial, ontological, social, economic, and political boundaries, which Malcolm Ferdinand designates as l'habité colonial, or systemic colonial inhabiting. L'habité colonial is one of the root causes of planetary change. It's a political way of life which exploits non-human and human resources so as to bring material profit to colonial powers. The overexploitation of the proletariat is suggested in this image where human bodies are reduced to mechanical parts in the machinery of industrial overfishing. The next lines, sewage and radioactive waste, pollutants and plastics, heavy metals, greenhouse gases, nuclear arms, naval bodies, concrete dams, cabling veins, deafening sonars, lustful tourism, invasive drilling, and deep-sea mining showcase the globalization of l'habité colonial as the source, as the cause of planetary change. Intriguingly enough, however, Perez does not point at the responsibilities of Western powers only. To a person of Western descent like me, this is extremely arresting. Perez uses the possessive our when he speaks about l'habité colonial, even when it comes to nuclear arms. Therefore, Perez endorses a global human responsibility for climate change, which inscribes his work in decolonial ecology. He breaks down the Anthropocene, Anglocene, Capitalocene, Plantationocene boundaries that have been erected by environmental scholars worldwide. A native from an island when a third of the land is US Navy exclusion zone, Perez makes a choice that is, to me, in the proper sense of the word, sublime. He chooses to uplift boundaries. He chooses not to perpetuate these dividing policies. He advocates an alternative, inclusive way of inhabiting the planet. The second movement of the poem represents this alternative in the shape of Oceanian Ecotheology. It's delivered along an anaphora on Please Forgive. One of its most obvious characteristics is its slow motion filming technique, which instantly contrasts with today's fast-paced, over-mechanized, and overstressed global society. What it shows is a sustained close-up on the bare feet of a person walking towards the water's edge. Their brown skin suggests that they are from the global south, probably from Oceania, as implied by the poem's title. Their feet look like a woman's. This counterposes the global north's invisibilization of racialized women. As to their footprints on the wet sand, they counterpose carbon footprint of most global activities. For instance, the reference to armored naval bodies stands in sharp contrast with the image of the bare legs and feet. Last but not least, the fact that the close-up is shot at ground level counters human hubris. Human hubris is what has led humans to believe they were superior to all and could modify the planet with no consequences to themselves. The ground level shooting instead expresses humility. The person walks up to the sea's edge and bends down in what I see as a gesture of apology. By bending down to the ground, this human body shapes like a metaphorical arc. It reaches beyond fractures to reconcile and reunite with their original matrix, the ocean. When the person's ankles and hands are girdled with water, it looks as if the ocean were washing away the shackles of slavery and of capitalist thinking. Mercy, a pivotal word, expresses a shift from anthropic agency to oceanic agency. The human addresses players to the ocean so that the ocean may protect them and not the other way around, as is often hubristically claimed. Lines like, "Please make it rain soon," and "Please make it stop raining soon," remind viewers that human life clearly depends on the ocean. This poem, therefore, decenters ontologies. Its ecotheology reactivates the ocean's divine nature, which was foundational to Oceanians. Yet, the poem's phraseology is typically Christian, which indicates that in decolonial ecology, epistemologies are hybrid and syncretic. In the place of boundaries, Perez foregrounds a spiritual bond to the ocean and to non-humans in general in order to better implement our response abilities. The third and last movement of the poem resumes the anaphora on praise, as in the first movement, but this time it displaces focus from responsibilities to response abilities. Indeed, it showcases human activism and activities that aim at not harming, but caring for the ocean. Here again, the filming technique is a succession of mad shots, as in the first movement, with human and ocean activities overlapping each other, but this time, human activity no longer obstructs the ocean, it merges with it. At a quick pace, Perez draws up a list of miscellaneous actions which range from the civil and political to the scientific and cultural. We hear the names and get quick shots of the Rainbow Warrior, Hokulea, sustainable fisheries, biochemical and technological research projects, activist websites, to name but a few. We also hear the name of the Sacred Water Walkers, who are a group of Native American women who organize ceremonial walks in the US and Canada Great Lakes Basin. This again clearly signifies that Perez's poem reaches beyond Oceania to try and mitigate planetary change. Politically, this third movement restores a balance between global north and global south. Indeed, the fractured human bodies of global south proletariat are now replaced by the full bodies of Oceanian navigators, standing upright and proud in their reactivated traditional vessels. There seems to be no boundaries between all these activities, either, whether they be traditional or technological. Indeed, their quick succession suggests that global north and global south may now be working hand in hand. Last but not least, there doesn't seem to be any boundaries between humans and non-humans either, since shots of human activities are interspersed with shots of marine wildlife. This illustrates the fact that mitigating planetary change can only be achieved through a global, cross-disciplinary, cross-cultural, and even cross-species cooperation. Very arrestingly, once again, all these human activities come with the adjective "your" addressed to the ocean, which confirms the collapse of human hubris. Humans are now at the service of the ocean. Towards the end of the poem, however, the possessive "your" mingles with "our." This occurs after Perez addresses the ocean in various Oceanian vernacular names, Tasi and Kai and Tai and Moana Nui and Vasa and Tahi and Waitui and Walsorara. From then on, the mingling of "your" and "our" resonates with the inclusive nature of possessive adjectives in Oceanian languages. This celebrates an ocean worldview of a sacred union with the ocean. And this union applies not only to Oceanians, but to all humans and non-humans. The last lines of the poem, "Praise your horizon of care, praise our blue planet, one world ocean, praise our transoceanic past, present, and future flowing through our blood." These last lines come with one last blurred view of the ocean, where all boundaries are erased. The poem ends on this vision of unified time and space and biosphere. It heralds a cosmopolitan planet where humans and non-humans may relate to one another for the continuation of the existence of complex life. I'm going to conclude on this poem's form. To address planetary change, Perez organizes literary change. He invents a brand new genre, the video echo poem, to assert a new worldview. He challenges the historical domination of the written word. Thinking in images and sounds allows to move beyond the written language, to explore how the ocean may think and maybe to relate with it more intimately. This new form calls for written words, images, orality, and modern technology to join forces together. It expands the canon of literature to articulate new epistemologies, new understandings of planetary change, and vindicate new, response-able political relationships.